Well, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending where you are joining us from. Welcome back here to the Launchpad. We are back with our live launch coverage. We had a couple week break there, but we're excited to be back for those. So, welcome back if you're joining us. If you're new and you haven't seen one of these are our live launch coverages that we do for SpaceX. We do them for Rocket Lab, some other rocket testing, and of course, Starship. Can't miss those. And we are here for Starlink 28. This is going to be the 29th Starlink mission, though. But the exciting thing about today's is it is going to be completing actually the first shell of the Starlink constellation. So we're waiting for SpaceX to start up here. We are currently sitting about 16 minutes or so, 17 minutes or so from T0. So they should be going live here in just the next couple of minutes. And we will, of course, bring that to you uninterrupted. But if you have questions, let us know in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from as well. A couple things you might see different. We are able to do super chats and super stickers now, and that is a great way that you're able to support the channel if you're interested in doing so. That'll also make sure that whatever you send in, we make sure we give a shout out as well. You can also become part of our Patreon, go behind the scenes and be in my ear here now. If you haven't joined our Discord yet, the link will be in the chat and is also in the description, and you can join that. We've got a whole public free side of that and invite you to join that conversation. Make sure you follow us over on Twitter at @TLPN_official. And that's where we always live tweet space updates. And one more thing to get out of the way, for the next couple of months, we are doing a fundraiser as part of our Inspiration 4 mission. And I invite you to be part of that. I know it's been a difficult time for many, but if you're interested in helping partner with us with that, we set the goal of raising $5,000, which will really help a lot of families cover their stay and the care that they need through St. Jude. So you can check out that link in the description as well. We're going to be doing that for the next few months. And a portion of all super chats and super stickers are going to be going into that as well. So lots of ways to get involved, but we want to get that out of the way. You're here for the launch of Starlink, so we're going to be focusing over on that. But yeah, we're coming up on about 15 minutes away from launch of today's Starlink 28 mission. So a few things we will go over from it. We are going to be launching on booster B1063. This is -2. So this is only its second mission. It's a new booster. It's had a 186-day turnaround and will be targeting landing on Just Read the Instructions, which is 620 kilometers downrange, with the tug Finn flag out and support ship Go Quest. And it looks like SpaceX is going live here. So we're going to make sure we have that pulled up and ready here, just so we don't miss anything that they're talking about. There we go. So we'll pull them full screen once they actually start their coverage here. Ooh, we're gonna switch that around one more time. There we go. But yeah, so aiming to have a touchdown of the booster. They're gonna be launching from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Today they're going, as I said, to Shell 1 of the Starlink constellation system, which is at 550 kilometers circular low Earth orbit at an inclination of 53 degrees. So this will be the last one that we see going for that targeted everything. They will be going, I believe there's a 525, a 575, and they're still making changes as they go. But they always said that Starlink 28 was the one where they would be able to fully cover the globe with at least some level of coverage. So a very exciting mission for them today. I'm sure they will go deeper into that. This is going to put them well into the 1,000+ satellites in orbit. Let me double check how many they've actually got now. They will have launched 1,737, of which 1,666 will still be in orbit around the Earth once launched here today. So, just about not even 100 that they've had to kind of retire. And those were a lot of them, the early test ones. As well as these are the first generation of the Starlink satellites. We are expected to see a second generation in the future. There's going to be 8 shells in total for the Starlink constellation at minimum. So we'll definitely be seeing that, but I'm sure they'll go into more detail here. But let's see some of the chat here. We're hello from South Africa. Great to see you again, Suzette. Gerard, good. How are you? Great. Excited to be back doing live streams. It was weird not doing these for a couple weeks. It was also a quiet couple weeks. There was like one Starlink mission and then the Virgin Galactic, and that was about it. Looks like SpaceX is getting started here. And don't want the CC on. There we go. But we'll pull this up here in a second while they give us an update on the weather, but it seems like everything's been progressing well through the count so far. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have questions, you can send those in through the broadcast. We'll be answering them. We, of course, will stay live all the way through deployment and be answering those questions as well as doing a replay. But welcome back here to the launch pad. If you're new, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on Facebook, come join us over on YouTube. We always go live on Facebook for launches, but we do a lot more streams and news clips over on YouTube, so you're not going to want to miss those. But let's listen in here.
Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, May 26th, and on screen is a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 2:59 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. My name is Yomezo, a Dragon propulsion engineer, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're watching a live webcast for the 13th Starlink launch this year and 29th to date. Starlink is a satellite internet constellation designed and manufactured by SpaceX that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations around the globe. If you've been following Starlink's progress, you'll know that our Starlink beta service is now available in the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and several locations around Europe. We're excited to announce that service is now also available in Belgium and the Netherlands. To date, over 500,000 people have placed an order or put down a deposit for Starlink, and with every launch, we get closer to connecting more people across the world. As we launch more satellites, install more ground stations, and continue to improve our networking software, our data speed, latency, and uptime will improve dramatically. In addition to being able to provide our customers with better service, with every Starlink launch, we get closer to our goal of near global coverage of the populated world. As always, head over to starlink.com to learn more. We are now at T-minus 11.5 minutes, and all systems are still go for an on-time liftoff at 2:59 p.m. Eastern Time. With that, let's take a closer look at the rocket that you see on your screen.
Hello, I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a space operations engineer. Now the Falcon 9 on your screen, that's our two-stage liquid-fueled rocket, has been loading propellants since T-minus 35 minutes. Falcon 9 stands 229 feet tall. That's slightly taller than a 21-story building. And much different from our recent Starlink missions, which launched and landed boosters for an 8th, 9th, and even a record-breaking 10th time. The booster that we're flying today is fairly new, having only supported the Sentinel-6A mission last year. Now, the bottom two-thirds of the vehicle is the first stage. You can see some of the soot left over from its previous flight. The first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space with the help of 9 Merlin engines that it has at its base. As I mentioned, we will be attempting to recover this first stage for the second time on our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions. On top of the first stage, we have our black carbon fiber inner stage, and on top of that is Falcon 9's second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. Once the first and second stages separate, about 2.5 minutes into the mission, the Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and carry our 60 Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit around planet Earth. Now, you'll also notice this large nose cone at the top of the rocket. That's called a fairing. That's where the stack of Starlink satellites is safely enclosed. The fairing's job is to protect those satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during the ascent phase. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll jettison those fairing halves as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. The fairing halves protecting our Starlink payload have quite a history. This will be the first fifth flight for one of the halves. Before today's launch, that half supported 4 previous Starlink missions going back to 2019. The other fairing half will be flying for the third time, previously having supported the Transporter-1 and Starlink-28 missions. Now, today's flight also marks the 40th time SpaceX has reflown fairing halves since November 2019. And of course, we're going to be attempting to recover them today using our recovery vessels named Go Searcher and Go Navigator. Beautiful day at the Cape. Weather is forecast 90% favorable for liftoff, and the recovery conditions look quite good for the booster. So with that, the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now. Now, for some reason, we do not launch today. We do have a backup opportunity available tomorrow at 2:38 p.m. Eastern Time.
Now that you know a little about the structure of Falcon 9 and its engines, the propellant, which is a substance used to create the energy to make the rocket go. Falcon 9 is a bipropellant vehicle, meaning it uses two propellants, a fuel and an oxidizer. An oxidizer is a type of chemical which a fuel requires to burn. Most burning on Earth uses oxygen, which is prevalent in the atmosphere. However, in space, there's no atmosphere to provide oxygen or other oxidizers, so rockets need to carry them up on their own. For Falcon 9, our fuel is a refined form of kerosene known as RP1, and our oxidizer is a super-chilled liquid oxygen called LOX. The liquid oxygen is chilled well below its boiling point so that it becomes what we call densified, which means there is a much greater amount of mass per volume, and we can load more of it into the booster. In addition to its propellants, Falcon 9 also needs an ignition source in order to go. And for that, we use the chemical TTEB, or triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane. When it is fully fueled, Falcon 9 holds just over 1 million pounds of propellant that the vehicle will burn through in less than 3 minutes after liftoff. Once our Merlin engines begin to burn RP1 kerosene and liquid oxygen, you'll see the rocket throwing the exhaust out of the engine bells in one direction while pushing the rocket in the other. This is a great example of Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. That 1 million pound weight of propellant is turned into all the flames that you see in flight coming out of the engines, creating the almost 2 million pounds of force exerted on the rocket to lift it up.
Now, in order to get to space, the rocket has to do more than just go up. It also has to go sideways really, really fast. At liftoff, gravity is pulling straight down on the rocket. But as we ascend, we'll start to tilt the engines, which is technically referred to as gimbaling. That turns the rocket horizontally. We're still going up, but we're also now heading horizontally away from the launch pad, and that maneuver is referred to as a gravity turn. The rocket typically needs to get to about 7.5 kilometers per second, or about 17,500 miles an hour horizontally, in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and to get into orbit. To help demonstrate the concept, imagine we were firing a cannon from a really high mountain. The cannonball will arc, and then gravity will pull it back down to Earth. As you increase the power, the cannonball will arc and land further and further away. Eventually, you could continue to increase the power, and the cannonball will go so fast that it ends up in free fall around the Earth. Gravity's still pulling on it, but it's going so fast that it never hits the ground. This arc that constantly misses the Earth is what we call an orbit. So when we get to liftoff today, keep an eye out on the orientation of Falcon 9. You'll see it initially start to go straight up until about T+10 seconds, at which point we'll start to shift orientation so Falcon 9 can start picking up sideways velocity. But before we get to that, why don't we check in on the status of the vehicle for today's launch?
We are currently just under T-minus 5 minutes and 30 seconds from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. We are currently waiting for the transporter erector, or TE, to retract, and that's that truss structure right next to the vehicle. First, the TE clamps will open, and the transport erector will then begin to retract away from the rocket slightly, and at T0, hydraulics will pull the TE farther away from Falcon 9 as it lifts off. Now, the TE provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing.
Tanks pressing for strong back retract.
Now, those clamp arms that you can see just below the fairing should start to open soon, and strong back retraction should happen in just a few seconds here.
Strong back lever started.
You heard strong back has started to retract. You can see those clamp arms opening around the Falcon's second stage there. You can see that strong back TE is started to move away from the vehicle there. Now, the first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Super chilled liquid oxygen is our propellant oxidizer, and that is what you see creating those white clouds that you can see around Falcon 9 there. And that's because the warm, humid ambient air causes the liquid oxygen to turn into a gas around the booster. Now, first stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes, just under 10 seconds here. And the second stage will finish prop loading about a minute after that at T-minus 2 minutes.
Poco bleed.
At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon
Stage
9...
1 locks load, close out.
Falcon 9 will be in startup, and you heard that call out for stage 1 LOX load complete. And when Falcon 9 gets in startup at T-minus 60 seconds, this means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken control of the launch countdown. And just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin 1D engines using that T-type ignition source we talked about, and we're set to lift off. The Starlink payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking favorable, and the range is green for launch. So here at just over T-minus 2 minutes, let's listen in on the terminal countdown.
So if you're just joining us, you're watching our live launch coverage of Starlink-28. This is the final mission to complete the first shell of the Starlink.
Stage 2 locks load, close out.
We have just finished loading our second stage. Our Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with over 1 million pounds of kerosene, RP1, and liquid oxygen.
So this is the final
Again, that white cloud coming from the booster there towards the middle is normal and expected. That is venting from the TE LOX line.
This is the final batch for the first shell of Starlink. There'll be over 8
Again,
shells
at
together.
T-minus
So let's
1
listen
minute,
in.
Falcon 9 will go into startup, and this is when stage 1 and stage 2 will begin pressurizing for launch, and the flight computer will have taken control of the countdown.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup, and in just a few seconds, the launch director should give the final go for launch.
Stage 2, pressing for flight.
Falcon 9, Starlink LDs go for launch.
You heard that call out for go for launch. All systems are go.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Let's listen in to the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our Starlink satellites to orbit.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Stage 1, pressing for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1, propulsion is nominal.
What a beautiful day for a rocket launch here. As you can see, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying our stack of 60 Starlink satellites to orbit. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down in preparation for max Q, or the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the rocket will see.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Vehicle
That
is
was
supersonic,
really clear
and
there
we
that
should be
time.
Passing through max Q here in just a few seconds.
I'm not sure we've seen one that clear.
Vehicle
that
has reached
supersonic
maximum
moment
aerodynamic
there.
pressure.
We just passed through max Q, And in about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back, and that's main engine cutoff, or MECO, stage separation, and second engine start 1. So first, main engine cutoff. That is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines that you can see burning right now will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. And this is where the first stage separates from the second stage.
The chill has begun.
With the first stage making its way back to land on our drone ship, just read the instructions, while second stage continues on its journey to its third event, which is second engine startup 1. Now this is where the 1 MVAC engine on our second stage lights up and propels that second stage along with our Starlink satellites to orbit. What a beautiful view of those 9 M1D engines burning there on beautiful clear day. And we're coming up on main engine cutoff shortly here in just about 10 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
You can tell they love their job. It's like it's the first time they've done this.
You can see in that beautiful footage that we did just have MECO, stage separation, and second engine startup 1. Those grid fins are coming out on the first stage there on the left. And in just a few seconds, we should have our fairing deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
You heard the call out, and you can see on your video there that we have had successful fairing deploy. And again, today's flight marked the 40th time that SpaceX has reflown a Falcon fairing half since November of 2019. Now, this is also our first 5th reflight for one of our fairing halves and a 3rd for the other half. In order to recover these fairing halves for future flights, we will be attempting to recover them again with the help of our recovery vessels, Go Searcher and Go Navigator.
This is also going to be it's the 65th flight of a reused booster for SpaceX, as well as they're going to be attempting their 85th booster landing. So very quickly racking up those landings. This
Stage
is
2 continuing towards its first orbit on the right-hand side of your screen. Left-hand side of your screen, you can see Falcon 9's first stage reorienting itself for its next 2 activities. That'll be 2 burns to come back safely to Earth. First of those being the entry burn. That's where we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines to help slow down the first stage as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn will happen closer to the drone ship. That's the landing burn. That's where we'll ignite just the single center Merlin engine. That'll bring the first stage's velocity rapidly down to 0 for a soft touchdown. On the right-hand side of your screen, second stage continuing to burn nominally, acceleration right down the middle. And you can see the glow of the nozzle there. Now, if you are just catching up with us, we did have a...
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
We did have a successful launch of Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And first stage on the left-hand side of your screen is headed back to our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions, stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. Second stage heading on the right-hand side of your screen is headed to its first orbit. As a reminder, today's mission does mark the 2nd flight for this booster. If you happen to catch fairing separation earlier, this will be the first 5th flight for one of those fairing halves and the 3rd flight for the other half. Reusability is critical to what we do here at SpaceX. It allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, and that drives down the cost. Now you can see the grid fins extended on the left-hand side of your screen. Every so often you'll see puffs of white gas. That's attitude control coming from the first stage to help reorient us to get the 9 Merlins on Falcon 9 pointed towards the Earth. Those Merlin engines are optimized for thrust at sea level, They help Falcon 9 achieve about 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. Meanwhile, the Merlin vacuum is optimized for space. That's why it has that larger nozzle. Now, coming up here is entry burn. Keep an eye out on the left-hand side of your screen.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
This burn expected to last about 20 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And successful shutdown of those 3 Merlin engines. Now, if you followed along our missions in the past, you'll know that soot
Stage
on
2
the first
continues on
stage
nominal trajectory.
is an indication that the rocket has flown before. That's because we use rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, as our fuel in Falcon 9. That's a carbon-based propellant. As we burn it, it generates soot. So with the engines down, as we're coming in through the Earth's atmosphere, the soot from the plume comes back up on the first stage and deposits it along the surface of the vehicle.
Hopefully we'll get that
Now, if we
booster.
didn't do that entry burn, the first stage would come in very quickly in the atmosphere, and the aerodynamic forces could
Stage
cause it
1
to
is
rip apart.
transonic.
So that's why we do that entry burn.
Hopefully we get that booster cam back to see another beautiful
And we
landing.
did temporarily lose the video feed, but we'll hopefully... There we go. Beautiful view. Now, at this point, since we're in the Earth's atmosphere, those grid fins will take over orientation and trajectory back towards the drone ship. Now, coming up, Stage 1 landing burn will begin. Shortly after landing
Terminal
burn ends,
Landing burn startup.
the second stage's engine will shut down.
We want to see it.
We should be in
Show
our
it.
expected orbit there. So keep
Come
an eye
on.
out, see if we can get a video feedback for the first stage.
Pull up the video. There it is. Come on.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Come on. Right on target. There's a puff. There's the orange.
Fantastic.
booster.
Right down the middle.
There we go.
That's our 85th
Stage 1
successful
landing
recovery,
burn.
100th, 18th successful launch of the
Stage 2
Falcon 9.
FTS is safe.
Now keep an ear out here for second engine cutoff number 1 on the second stage.
MECO.
And with that, navigation officer, we did hear the call out there for SECO. Navigation officer will be checking
Expected loss of signal.
the
Cape.
parameters. Make sure we are in our intended orbit.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Fantastic news. So from here, we do have a coast phase followed up by the second burn of our second stage engine. These additional burns allow us to modify the orbits of the payload more efficiently than if we were to launch directly into our final orbit. That's just one of those quirks of orbital mechanics. And today, our second stage will coast for 35 minutes until we reach apogee, which is the highest point of the orbit. Views here on your screen of the fairing and then the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. So once we reach the highest point of the orbit, we will reignite the second stage for a short burn. And you can follow along the progress of the second stage with this animation showing where we are around the Earth. We'll be back here at T plus 44 minutes and 30 seconds for second engine start number 2. See you soon.
So we're going to, of course, be live here while we tune in and watch there. As the
Acquisition
booster
of
is
signal,
now in its
Newfoundland.
second stage part, and Starlink is in its second stage. They're expecting to do a quick 2-second burn here today just to finalize their orbits, and that's going to be at 45 minutes and about 33 seconds. But we're, of course, going to be live all the way through answering your questions. I know we saw a few that came in here. You're absolutely right. Tubular, done, and yeah, Pfizer never gets old. Absolutely. Another happy landing for of SpaceX boosters as they start really racking those up. They've only had a couple fails since really the early years, and it's exciting to see them because that's the key to reusability. But while we're here, make sure to send in your questions. Use the hashtag AskTLP. I'm going to be answering those live up through coast period until the burn. I know we saw a couple. I know we had a question from Dragon King if we found out yet about the replacements for the Falcon 9 booster legs. I haven't been able to find anything on that yet, but we are working to try to find an answer for that. If you're watching and you happen to have an answer, drop it in the chat or tweet us at @TLPN_official. be a great help there. Yeah, we saw a really great view of the kind of the sonic boom and the max Q moment. It was a crystal clear day, which was perfect for this launch. We haven't had many day launches of Starlink because with the first shell, they were instantaneous launch windows. And now
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda.
Most of the other shells will also be instantaneous launch windows because they'll want the Starlinks in a specific position in the shells to make sure they can bring the best possible coverage. Yep, now about a half an hour waiting for it. So send in those questions. We'll be answering them. Nathan, hello from France. Welcome. Great to see you here. I know we had South Africa. We've got New Jersey. I'm in Canada, in Alberta, so we got people all over the world. Let us know where you're watching from as well, and we will keep ourselves live. If you weren't with us this morning, this is a triple live stream day, which we didn't know it was going to be, but here we are. This morning there was a big announcement from Lockheed Martin and GM announcing their new lunar rovers, so make sure you head on over and check out that live stream. We'll be posting just the announcement clip following this stream, but if you want to watch the full announcement with the Q&A and everything, it to you guys in the near future, so you can know what launched on what days and when, and everything like that. So I'm just going to quickly pull this up here so you guys can see it, and you can be able to pick what, take a look day and see launch on what day. But this is data, so we can take a look here today. This is the 26th of May. This is everything that has launched in history for today. We know that this day is complete. So quite a few launches in history. Of course, we've got our launch from today in there that is now color-coded, that it was a successful launch so far. We still need to finalize that orbit, but everything's progressing well. But this is a place you can come, take a look and see the missions, the launch facilities, pads and everything. If there was crews or anything, we'll have that as well. So I'll just jump down to some of the shuttle era ones where you can see even the full payloads and everything there. So this is something, if you're over on Discord, that you would be able to have access to, take a look at, and then eventually we'll be releasing this for people to be able to have access to either on a website or an app or things like that. So we're excited to have that coming up there. A huge shout out to Marcus, who has been working extremely hard on that, pulling it together for us, making sure it's all color-coded and the data's accurate. And everything there. So exciting there. We got a question from Jamie on YouTube. How long have you been a fan of? How long you've been a SpaceX fan? Ooh, well, like, I don't want to say excessively. Like, I've followed them since the Falcon 1. I have seen some of their Falcon 1 tests. I watched some of their Falcon testing with Falcon 9, things like that. I would think kind of like everybody when they really started picking up with Starlinks and some of their cargos. Really started watching, and then of course that Falcon Heavy launch, I think the whole world kind of was like, ooh, triple booster rocket that lands by itself, what? Yes, please. So I would say most of the journey but not missing a launch. And if I can't watch it live, then I watch it after, I would say, at least the last 3-4 years.
Expected
What
loss
about
of
you
signal,
guys? Let us
Newfoundland.
know, what's your favorite rocket company? Who have you been following the longest? I followed the shuttles quite extensively. I was down at Kennedy. Didn't get to see a launch, but got to peek into the VAB of a shuttle getting ready for launch. And excited to hopefully be back down there later this year with our Inspiration 4 coverage, which is something that you can join us and be part of if you're interested. We are doing our fundraiser as part of Inspiration 4, and all this money goes directly to St. Jude's to help just take care of those kids and the families. There's a lot of costs that come up, and
Acquisition of signal, Goonhilly.
so you can take a link. The link for that is in the description as well, or you can ask questions about it on Discord or Twitter if you want to know more. On the website, it lets you know a little bit about where the money's going, kind of how much equals what. I believe it's $30 or $50 covers like meals for the family for the day. So really great thing. No, it's a difficult time, so only donate if you're able to, but it's appreciated. Any super chats and super stickers from our live streams over the next few months will also be a portion going into that fundraiser as well. But we're gonna pull up a replay here of the launch, just so we can watch what we just saw. You can keep your questions coming in, and then we will be back just in time for the second stage booster ignition for the quick little burn of the finalizing the
T-minus
orbit.
15
so this
seconds.
is a replay
Stage
of what
1,
we
pressing
just
for flight.
witnessed with SpaceX. Let's listen.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
What a beautiful day for a rocket launch here. As you can see, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying our stack of 60 Starlink satellites to orbit. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down in preparation for max Q, or the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the rocket
Vehicle
will
is
see.
supersonic.
Vehicle is supersonic, and we should be passing through max Q here in just a few seconds.
Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
We just passed through max Q, and in about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back, and that's main engine cutoff, or MECO, stage separation, and second engine start 1. So first, main engine cutoff. That is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines that you can see burning right now will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. And this is where the first stage separates from the second stage.
Has begun.
With the first stage making its way back to land on our drone ship, just read the instructions, while second stage continues on its journey to its third event, which is second engine startup 1. Now this is where the 1 MVAC engine on our second stage lights up and propels that second stage along with our Starlink satellites to orbit. What a beautiful view of those 9 M1D engines burning there on a beautiful clear day. And we're coming up on main engine cutoff shortly here in just about 10 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation complete.
And recognition.
You can see in that beautiful footage that we did just have MECO stage stage separation and second engine startup 1. Those grid fins are coming out on the first stage there on the left. And in just a few seconds, we should have our fairing deploy.
Fairing separation.
You heard the call out, and you can see on your video there that we have had successful fairing deploy. And again, today's flight marks the 40th time that SpaceX has reflown a Falcon fairing half since November of 2019. Now, this is also our first 5th reflight for one of our fairing halves and a 3rd for the other half. In order to recover these fairing halves for future flights, we will be attempting to recover them again with the help of our recovery vessels, Go Searcher and Go Navigator.
Stage 2 continuing towards its first orbit on the right-hand side of your screen. Left-hand side of your screen, you can see Falcon 9's first stage reorienting itself for its next 2 activities. That'll be 2 burns to come back safely to Earth. First of those being the entry burn. That's where we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines to help slow down the first stage as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn will happen closer to the drone ship. That's the landing burn. That's where we'll ignite just the single center Merlin engine. That'll bring the first stage's velocity rapidly down to 0 for a soft touchdown. On the right-hand side of your screen, second stage continuing to burn nominally, acceleration right down the middle. And you can see the glow of the nozzle there. Now, if you are just catching up with us, we did have a
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
We did have a successful launch of Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And first stage on the left-hand side of your screen is headed back to our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions, stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. Second stage heading on the right-hand side of your screen is headed to its first orbit. As a reminder, today's mission does mark the 2nd flight for this booster. If you happen to catch fairing separation earlier, this will be the first 5th flight for one of those fairing halves and the 3rd flight for the other half. Reusability is critical to what we do here at SpaceX. It allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, and that drives down the cost. Now you can see the grid fins extended on the left-hand side of your screen. Every so often you'll see puffs of white gas. That's attitude control coming from the first stage to help reorient us to get the 9 Merlins on Falcon 9 pointed towards the Earth. Those Merlin engines are optimized for thrust at sea level. They help Falcon 9 achieve about 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. Meanwhile, the Merlin vacuum is optimized for space. That's why it has that larger nozzle. Now, coming up here is entry burn. Keep an eye out on the left-hand side of your screen.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
This burn expected to last about 20 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And successful shutdown of those 3 Merlin engines. Now, if you followed along our missions in the past, you'll know that soot
Stage
on
2
the first
continues on
stage
nominal trajectory.
is an indication that the rocket has flown before. That's because we use rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, as our fuel in Falcon 9. That's a carbon-based propellant. As we burn it, it generates soot. So with the engines down, as we're coming in through the Earth's atmosphere, the soot from the plume comes back up on the first stage and deposits it along the surface of the vehicle. Now, if we didn't do that entry burn, the first stage would come in very quickly in the atmosphere, and the aerodynamic forces could
Stage
cause
1
it to
is
rip apart.
transonic.
So that's why we do that entry burn. And we did temporarily lose the video feed, but we'll hopefully, there we go. Beautiful view Now, at this point, since we're in the Earth's atmosphere, those grid fins will take over orientation and trajectory back towards the drone ship. Now, coming up, stage 1 landing burn will begin. Shortly after landing burn ends,
landing burn startup.
the second stage's engine will shut down. We should be in our expected orbit there. So keep an eye out, see if we can get a video feedback for the first stage.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Fantastic, right down the middle. That's our 85th successful recovery, 100th, 18th successful launch of the Falcon 9. Now keep an ear out here for second engine cutoff number 1 on the second stage. And with that, navigation officer, we did hear the call out there for SECO. Navigation officer will be checking
Expected loss of signal.
the
Cape.
parameters. Make sure we are in our intended orbit.
Nominal.
Just another beautiful flight there. That was a replay of the mission so far. We're just going to pull up the live view, see where we are at now with it here. There we go. This is the updated location. So currently flying over north of Africa, just passed over Europe. And we'll be obviously staying live until we see that final burn and then deployment. We're expecting the second engine startup to occur at about 45 minutes and 33 seconds. And that's just going to be a quick 2-second burn for the finalizing of orbit. But yeah, send in your questions. Doesn't have to be related to Starlink. It can be anything SpaceX, space related. We'll be answering those live, and we'll be, of course, live later tonight as well as part of our landing pad, which is our weekly broadcast where we hang out, answer your questions, fly some Kerbal crafts, and different things like that. So anything we can't answer here today during this stream, we will answer, of course, tonight as well. But another beautiful launch, absolutely C1, and beautiful landing. You know, we didn't get that perfect view just yet on this stream, but we're able to see it come down and be standing there just a little off center, but nice and sturdy, and it looked decently straight. So we'll have to see what it's like once it gets back in, the Octograbber gets it and the drone ship brings it back into port, just to see how perfectly it landed, how the landing legs go. I know we had a question earlier about how often they replace the legs. We're working on that question, but it's a really valid question on how long they can last, because we did see them take the legs off of the last booster that landed, which was the 10th flight one. So be interesting to see what happens with that one. That was the milestone that they had set as a goal, was use a booster 10 times. So we'll be taking a look at that. But we're going to stay live here without any questions. I'm going to take a quick break, but keep those questions coming in. I'll jump back on and answer those. You're watching our live launch coverage of Starlink-28 right here on the launch pad. This is Zach. Stay with us.
Acquisition of signal, Diego Garcia.
Invac engine chill has begun.
Welcome back to the live webcast of SpaceX's 29th Starlink mission. We had an on-time liftoff at 2:59 p.m. Eastern Time from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Second stage continues to look good, and our second engine startup 2 is just a few moments away here at T plus 45 minutes and 30 seconds. Now this will be a very short burn, only 1.58 seconds of our MVAC engine that you can see on your screen there, and this will help us get into a more circular orbit for our Starlink deploy. Hopefully we can catch that really quick burn on video. Now before this small burn, we have been pulsing the settling thrusters on our stage 2 to keep the propellant at the bottom of the tanks, ready to be pulled into the engine pump when it spins up here in just a few seconds. Again, we're just waiting for acquisition of signal from our ground station.
S2 burn 2 complete.
Good burn. Looks like the video came back just in time for us to see that burn there. And now we're just looking for a confirmation of a good orbit.
Nominal orbit insertion.
You heard the call out for the nominal orbit. We have another coast phase coming up here before we deploy our next batch of Starlink satellites into orbit. During this time, the spacecraft will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. We'll see you back here at around T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes.
So as they said there, we are just waiting for the deployment now, which we are expecting to see just almost 4 minutes after the 1 hour mark into flight. So we'll be staying live for that. That's when we will see all 60 Starlink satellites deploy. First, we will be seeing the second stage booster just before do a spin maneuver, which will prepare to kind of fling the Starlink satellites out. Now, they are not going to be deployed into their final orbit. As you can see, they'll be deploying below 300 kilometers. Their final orbit is going to be at 550 kilometers. What they'll do is, as they slowly spread out over the coming days and the next few weeks, they will use their onboard thrusters and engines to increase their orbit to that final position, and making sure they're all exactly in the place that they are supposed to be for operational use. But this was the 28th Starlink mission. This was the last group in the first shell of the Starlink satellites. These are the first generation Starlink satellites, and there'll be at least 7 more shells to go. So thousands and thousands more of these missions, really, for SpaceX to be able to complete Starlink to the level that they want, but also to the requirement of what they have said they can do to the FCC. They do need Starships. So as we saw, Falcon 9 can carry 60 at a time. That's the maximum they've launched on it. Some people have thought maybe they could launch more in a Falcon Heavy configuration with an extended fairing, maybe get 100 or more in that. But obviously that's a much bigger cost of launching 3 Falcons in a Falcon Heavy configuration. We've only seen 3 of those. We will have a couple more Falcon Heavy launches coming up. I believe there's one later this year, one did get moved into next year. And then we have, they'll really start to pick up as they get preparations for a gateway station and things like that. I believe 2023, we have 4 or 5 already scheduled for that year. So it'll be exciting to see those, and hopefully we'll be on the ground, or part of our team will be on the ground to bring you that live coverage and those live views. We want the launch pad to be a community, so if you live in an area near a rocket site or are interested in joining a team of people and have a skill that you think might be part of it, send us a message over on Discord or tweet us in a DM, and we will connect with you for that and see if there's any opportunities to build a team. We're all volunteers building this team space team, as we just want to help push space forward. Here at the Launchpad, we cover everything space, space flight, space engineering, and the future of space and STEM. So we are excited to be covering lots of things coming up in the near future. Have a number of videos underway of where we will take deep dives into new aerospace companies that you may or may not have heard of that we are working on. So make sure you send us questions that you want to know about every aerospace company, and we will include those into our questions that we make sure to cover in our videos. Tubular has a question here from YouTube. Do you know the lifetime expectation for a single Starlink satellite? Ooh, that's a good question. I know there was at one point that there was thoughts that these first ones may be replaced with like later stage satellites, but I do not believe that we have had a set lifetime listed by SpaceX for them, since they are kind of like a new satellite. We do know that they only have until the end of 2027 to finalize all their deployment, and they're not going to be replacing these satellites. That's to get all the new ones out. So, I mean, I think we could easily probably say decades. I think most likely, if anything's going to happen, we're going to see Starlink satellites, first generation and probably the second generation by then, be technically old. If you think about where we've gone in just the last 5 years, let alone 10 years, with technology, smartphones, things like that, even broadcasts like this, 10 years ago, something like this generally wasn't thought of. Excuse me, it's been an early morning. By 2027, where's tech going to be? I mean, our phones are smarter than what they went to the moon with, and are more powerful than what they went to the moon with. This has only been out for 10, 12 years. What's this going to look like in another 6, 7 years? I mean, transparent, maybe, who knows? So I think if anything, that's where we'll run into some stuff, is that they'll have to replace Starlink with another generation of Starlink that will advance it further. Now, we did see they filed with the FCC that they want to look into possibly launching Starlink powered cell phones as an option in a later future. So that could be an upgrade to future satellites, or it could be something they think they'd be able to do with this current batch as well. So it's a good question, but unfortunately one I do not have an answer for. But I'll keep an eye out and see if we see an answer for that. But yeah, if you have questions, send them in. We're going to be live here. We've got about 12, 13 more minutes in the broadcast till we see that deployment. And then we will wrap it up here at that point, and we will, of course, be live again tonight. We're going to be starting at 8 or 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be live for a few hours tonight, answering your questions, playing some Kerbal, lots of different things. Tubular, yeah, I also think the earlier satellites would be retired for technical reasons. Much progress will be made, newer models. Absolutely. We do know that they're working on a second gen. I believe Elon had said that, but they haven't said when those will come out. Shells 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are technically part of phase 1. And then shells 6, 7, and 8 are part of phase 2. And SpaceX has until March 2024 to launch the first half of phase 1. And those have to be completed by March 2027, all of phase 1. But they also only have until November 2024 to launch the first half of phase 2. And they complete that by, November 2027. If they aren't able to do this, they open up the issues of having issues with the frequency bands that they have requested for. Now, I'm working on a video that came out, kind of a news flash of there was a company that went to the FCC and asked for them to stop SpaceX from launching Starlink because they want to do a constellation too, and they can't keep up with what SpaceX is doing. And Elon's tweet in response to this was pretty much one word and was perfect. Exactly! Exclamation point. That's SpaceX. They have their own rockets so they can launch. This was the 5th launch in the last 30 days for Starlink. Like, that's outstanding when you think back to what we used to have before Falcon 9s with shuttle. You know, we saw 5, 6 a year, let alone in a month. So they'll be well into the 2000s by the end of this year. So that'll definitely be a help. And then they'll go from there. Shell 2, which is, I'm assuming, what they'll be working on next, has the same number of satellites that they just launched in Shell 1, which is 1,584. Shell 2 will be launching at 53.2 degrees inclination, this last batch, and these previous 28 were at 53 degrees, so just slightly different inclination. Orbital altitude, 10 kilometers less, so 540 kilometers. But again, 1,584. Then the later shells, 3, 4, and 5, are at higher altitudes, at completely different inclinations. We got 70 degrees, 97.6 degrees, and they're going to be at 570 kilometers and 560 kilometers. But altogether, between those 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's only about 1,200 in all 3 of those shells. So that will definitely bring them down, and then we'll have shells 6, 7, and 8. Shells 6, 7, 8 have way more though. They have about 2,500 in each shell. And that's going to help. All of these extra layers are really to help decrease latency and increase bandwidth and finalize some of the areas. But with today's launch, once these are in operational status, they will have covered everything. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm so tired today. It's that surprise announcement from Lockheed Martin this morning. Didn't want to miss it. But great questions there, Tubular. Will you become a Starlink customer if live? I live in the Netherlands and have perfect wired internet, so no need for me. I'm running into very much the same thing. I live in a major city right now. Don't really have plans on that changing. So I have fiber optic internet. I wish I could say it was good or great internet or perfect. So we're working on that because it's not. But right now, Starlink can't compete with the speeds I'm getting. But we have thought, now that SpaceX has filed for Starlink to be able to be portable, our family have an RV, and I do plan on being down, hopefully for more launches once the pandemic wraps up, either myself or with our team. So we have looked at, in the future, maybe next year, the year after, basically building a portable studio and a couple suitcases with Starlink. So that is definitely something that we would be looking at doing here. Would really like to be able to operate on Starlink, especially for if we were out in the Mojave Desert or different things covering launches and things like that, or even just at Kennedy, pull out a Starlink, drop it on the top of the truck, and be able to broadcast from Kennedy for you guys. We want to bring you the best possible coverage, and that's because the supporters of our Patreon and different things like that. So in the future, absolutely. If it ever gets to the point where it's closer to competing with what internet I can get in my town wired or like through the ground, then absolutely I would look at switching. I was invited like onto the beta part. I did get that email to be able to order, but at this point it just doesn't make sense for the investment for what I do. It wouldn't be I would like to try it to live stream, maybe our weekly hangouts on Starlink, see how that goes, and then maybe we could do something like a Starlink broadcast on Starlink, which I think would be amazing. But in the future, absolutely. How about investing in a Starlink IPO? SpaceX or Starlink, like one day go public 100% with get stocks into those. I think that makes sense. I know Rocket Lab is coming out later this year. They're going public, so definitely something to take a look and see where it opens at. But I think makes a lot of sense investing in companies that are even related to space. I think it's smart. These are my own opinions. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not trained. But investing in companies that are connecting into the space industry, I think is very smart. If you watch the Lockheed Martin announcement, if you haven't, watch it after. But there was a lot of pointing to, at one point, shuttle astronaut Leland was talking about how there's a book at NASA about all the things that changed humanity on Earth that came because of the space program. Computer chips in our laptops, in our phones, trifocal and bifocal glasses, I believe it was duct tape, WD-40, I know is the main one everybody uses, memory foam, type of thing with our mattresses and our pillows. There's so many things. I want to say someone had even said a slinky at one point. There was something for protection or something. But the number of things that have come from the space industry that affect our life that are here on Earth, on the ground as everyday people, is huge. Not slinky, silly putty. There it is. So lots of things to see within that, and I think that's where it makes a lot of sense trying to invest in those. Obviously, make your own decisions as you will on that, whether you're doing crypto or anything like that. Always do the research, and as Elon has said, never invest your full life savings into one option. That's just not smart. Tubular, thanks for answering my questions. Why is the North Pole not covered by Starlink? So the North Pole and South Pole are not covered by Starlink because they're not launching in an polar inclination. There's one, I believe there's one or two Starlinks that are in a polar that were part of a ride share. So they added like 2 Starlink satellites at the very end that they were able to deploy. There's no need for how much area you would have to cover. The number of satellites that you would need to add is quite substantial. Now, that's not saying they couldn't add them in the future, but polar orbits are something we don't normally see, especially out of the Cape. We've seen a few recently, but it had been 30, 40 years since the last one. So definitely something to see and look at that. I'm just going to jump back there. I'm just curious what that was flying right by the booster. Maybe a satellite off in the distance, or oh, just a piece of fluff off the engine itself. But always seeing what we can see in it. We have seen before where we've seen some satellites off in the distance catch the light, so it's always neat seeing what we can see there. But sorry, could you please briefly explain the Lockheed Martin announcement? Missed it. Oh, no worries at all, Joe. No, didn't go over it in this one. We'll go over it tonight, but I can cover it briefly. We'll be posting just the announcement portion without all the press and the talking right after this. So stay tuned for that in the next 10-15 minutes. But yeah, the Lockheed Martin announcement is they are partnering with GM, and they are going to be building the next generation of lunar rovers. Now, they have not won a contract from NASA. They are developing this in advancement of NASA putting out the request for bids for the contract. But Lockheed Martin and GM, it's the first time they're working together on this type of project for space. And they're looking at building the vehicles that will be for the lunar surface. The previous vehicles that were used during the Apollo era only went 3.2 miles on the surface. They said to travel around the circle of the moon, it's over 6,000 miles. So they want to build something that can go in the middle, which pretty big middle to target, but they want something that, we can really, land starships of people, because let's be honest, that's what's going to be. and really do traveling expeditions for them. They're going to be fully autonomous is what they want to do as well, so they can be used like a rover. It looks like from the very few photos and from what they were saying in the press conference with some questions from the press, they will be ones where the people still will be external. They will not be interior like the one being designed by Toyota and the Japanese Space Agency. That's an internal like cab one that's pressurized. This one's going to be external. They said minimum 2 people. If they can do more, obviously that would be great. And they're working on that. So they didn't say a lot more. It was very much just, I think they wanted to get it out there. I think they wanted, one, it helped stocks, obviously, but 2, they wanted it out there so it didn't leak out. But they had some really great videos. So we've got about 4 or 5 minute video that just talks about the announcements. That'll be up probably about 30-40 minutes after this broadcast here. So make sure you watch out for that. And we will
welcome back
have
to our
that up.
broadcast for our 29th Starlink mission. If you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station at 2:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Then successful stage separation. Recovered our first stage for the second time on our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions, and had 2 successful second stage Merlin vacuum engine startups. So we had some video shots there of the second stage. We're awaiting our next major event, which will be payload deployment of the Starlink satellites. Now, over the last coast phase, we've started to spin the second stage a little bit. You can actually see maybe the sun might pop into frame there. And that's to help those Starlink satellites space themselves out after payload deployment. And here's a shot of the top of the second stage, camera looking up at the Starlink satellites.
Stand by for deployment.
So coming up, payload deployment.
Starlink deploy confirmed.
There they go.
So that's confirmation of payload deployment. You saw the mechanism separating away, and now the Starlink satellites starting to make their way away from the second stage. Shortly, they will deploy their solar array. Wow, that's a beautiful shot of Earthrise in the background. But shortly, they will deploy their solar array, and then over the next few days and weeks, they'll start to distance themselves out. They've got onboard ion thrusters, and that'll help them make their way into their final operational orbit.
And with that successful deployment of our satellites, we'll bring today's webcast to a close. Thank you to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's mission. And of course, thank you to all of our viewers and all of our Starlink customers using our beta service at this time. If you're interested in being a part of our beta program, head over to starlink.com and sign up. Hope you enjoyed the webcast today, and we'll see you soon.
And just like that, they are done. And that completes the launch of Starlink-28. Thanks for being here. I saw a couple questions there. Golden, did you see the lunar eclipse? Unfortunately, one, I'm not sure if it was clear enough here, but the moon was just a little too low on the horizon for us to see it. We were actually right. My city was right on the line of total eclipse versus partial. But I've seen some amazing photos out. If you haven't seen John Krause's photo, where he captures the entire eclipse with a big satellite dish, and it's gorgeous. Definitely go check that out on Twitter. We retweeted it at tlpn_official. Make sure you follow us there. That's where we do all of our live news updates as we hear it happen, as they happen. Make sure you've subscribed on YouTube and plugged in on our Discord, and check out our Patreon if you want to help the Launchpad expand and do more. We've got a bunch of perks that you can do with exclusive merch discounts, exclusive Discord servers where you can connect with me directly, and a bunch of stuff there. So definitely check those out. It's definitely not expected, but it's greatly appreciated. And we will be live again tonight for the landing pad, our weekly night hangout, where we will answer all your questions about everything space tech, and hang out, play some Kerbal, talk about some other announcements coming up, and some of the future launches we're expecting to see over the next couple of weeks as well. So we will see you guys here later tonight. You're watching the Launchpad. This is Zach Signing off for now. I'll see you tonight.